Welcome to episode 182 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week, we play Dungeons of Aether. Let's get right into it.
You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club.
Welcome to Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have one friend with me. Her name is Katie Lesperance. Katie, hello.
You didn't have to say it sadly. Like, I showed up, for God's sake.
I don't know why I went sad. I think it was more like I appreciate Katie Jacob episodes because they have a good energy to them.
Yeah.
Our Fallout 3 episode, I think, is one of my favorites in recent memory, so let's try and recreate that fun friendship energy today. Today we're talking about Dungeons of Aether, but before we get into that, I want to ask you for 3 favors. If you like what you hear here, do us a favor, give us a review on your podcasting platform of choice, because that's how people see more about this podcast, and, you know, maybe send it to a friend. That's the second thing. And the third thing is you can follow us on Twitter. We have moved to a non-regular schedule for these episodes, so Twitter's the best place to find out, hey, they dropped an episode, beyond obviously being subscribed to this on your podcasting platform of choice. That's all I got for the keeping of house, so let's move on to talk about this game, Dungeons of Aether. It's developed by Aether Studios and ampersandbear, published by Aether Studios. It's on Switch, Android, Windows, and Mac, and it was originally released on PC on February 28th of 2023. We start with the fast pitch. It's a one-sentence description of the game that we are about to talk about. Katie, I've said a lot of words. What's this game all about?
It is squad-based dicey dungeons.
You stole the thing I was gonna say.
Yes! Excellent.
It's a dungeon crawler mixed with Dicey Dungeon. That's exactly what this game is.
Yeah.
Let's give folks the story of how this whole thing came to be, because you and I played this game first. I bought it on a Steam sale for a couple of bucks because I played it at a PAX and said, ooh, I like Dicey Dungeon. Let's try this Dungeons of Aether game. Played it on a plane for like 2 hours straight and was addicted. And then told you, Katie, this is a game I think that you're going to like given your likes of card games. Mm-hmm. And I think you were immediately drawn to it as well. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. You told me about it. You're like, hey, it's a roguelite dice game, strategy game. And yeah, I love my strategy games. I love my roguelites. I'm like, yes, please, give me more. So went on Steam, got it based on your recommendation alone. That's right.
Hey.
It means a lot.
Hey.
And then I really enjoyed it. I have an unusual amount of critiques and qualms, but overall, I enjoyed my time.
I'm sort of in the same boat as you, where there is a version of this game, which is almost why I want them to make a sequel, because if Dungeons of Aether 2 came out and they address a couple of things, I think this game could be up there with stuff like Dicey Dungeons, Slay the Spire, if they make the changes that we're going to talk about in a little bit. You're smirking.
Because I knew you were going to say Slay the Spire. As soon as you said, oh, I think it'll reach peaks of, I'm like, he's going to say Slay the Spire, and that's ridiculous, because almost nothing reaches the peak of Slay the Spire. Yeah. It's one of the best games ever.
I'm speaking as someone who has how many hours in Slay the Spire?
Oh, at this point, I think it's like 500. Like I've done everything I can do, and I just fire it up. I at least weekly. Like I play it every week, at least once, and just do a run because I love it so much. But this game, very different from Slay the Spire, but it has kind of that strategy game where you are meeting enemies, and there is a core set of mechanics that you use to try to beat them or defend or kind of make choices each turn of how you're going to approach it.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to note right off the bat that this is based on the Aether property, which, Katie, I don't know if you knew this, but it's based off Rivals of Aether, which is a Super Smash Brothers like.
I found this out today because I Googled something, and then I was like, oh, set in the Aether universe. And I was like, wait, there's a universe? I had no idea, because I'm not a big fighting game person in general. It's not a scene that I really follow. So I'm like, oh, this is based off a fighting game. I would have never guessed.
I mean, especially like, no offense to any of the games in this category, but like the tier 2 of Smash Brothers games that are not Smash Brothers, I think of stuff as popular as Multiversus, Framemakers, but then stuff like this one, and then Ubisoft has one too that I don't remember the name of off the top of my head, but there's a lot of them. I've not played the Smash game, but this is based in that universe, and it splits into 2 different gameplay mechanics at its core. There is the dungeon crawling aspect of it, and there is the battles which involve dice. I would like to focus first on the battles because I'm sure you agree, this is the best part of the video game.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the video game, essentially.
Yes, and the rest is side stuff to get you there. And to kind of fill it out a little bit and get your items, get your this, you know. But yeah, the core thing is the battles. The battles are, so they're set up, it's very tight in a way that where each turn is very significant. Because you only have like 3 hits, and each or your enemy have 3 or 2 hits. But you have your different stats that you are filling in each and every turn. You have your attack, your defense, your speed, and the green one, which is something to do with your skills. I forget what it's called. Dexterity, maybe?
It's not called dexterity. It's not called skill, but what it does is it essentially dictates what moves that you can do within a turn.
Yeah. So each character has a set of like 7 different abilities they can use. Depending on how much you have filled into that stat determines what you can do that turn and what you can't. So your enemy has like this exact same setup, which I like when games do this, when it's like you and the enemy have a similar approach to combat. This is irrelevant to this discussion, but that's part of why I like Sekiro so much, is that the rules apply to you and the rules apply to them, and it's cool.
Yep.
So I like when that happens. So each turn they give you a bunch of dice, random dice.
Accuracy
is the stat, yes. Which is kind of, I think it should be dexterity, but that's okay. Yeah. So you get a random assortment of dice, and you do a draft, which is a unique spin on this, that you and the enemy are both using the dice. Whereas like something like Dicey Dungeons, you're using the dice. The enemy is not using the dice. The enemy is just, they have an attack built in or whatever they're going to do set.
I believe in Dicey Dungeon, you each have your own pools, whereas here you're sharing a pool of drafted dice where there's 6 dice that are in front of you, and you have your base stats. So let's say you have 4 attack, 2 defense, 2 accuracy, 1 speed. In front of you on each turn, you'll get 6 dice that are drafted of different colors and different numbers. So you might have a red 6, a gray 2, a green 3, and then others. And then there's also gold dice that act as wild cards. And you have to decide as a tactician every turn, how are you going to decide what you're going to pick first in the draft, and then also where you're going to place those dice, because they get their full value if you put them in the correct category. So if you grab a red 6 and put it in attack, you will get the full value of that attack. So your attack, if it's base 2, it'll go from 2 to 8. But based on what the enemy is doing, you can take those dice that you've drafted and put them in another category. They're just worth 1. It sometimes changes based on the character you have, but essentially, if you put it in another category, you only get 1, even if the dice is 6. So there's this like fun play where sometimes you will wait yourself to go for an attack, knowing that, okay, I can take an attack this time. My defense stat, I'm not going to put anything in. I can take the attack. But then speed plays into it, where if you have a higher speed, you'll go first, and then accuracy dictates, let's say you have 7 moves in front of you. If you only have 2 in accuracy, you can only use the first 2 moves. But if you put like a 7 in that one, let's say you take a green 5 and put it in accuracy, you can then access all the moves in your repertoire.
Yeah, and obviously the later ones are stronger. They have more benefits to you. So I'm like, where do I start? Where do we get into this? So
I think we can first say we like this game.
This
game is pretty good.
I think it is this size that it's supposed to be. I think that it is the price that it is supposed to be.
Yep.
I really liked it. Like you said.
How long did you play it for? Do you know? I played it for 5.5 hours.
I think more.
Okay.
Yeah, I would guess probably like 8-ish.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, as I said, I like it. It is a good spin on a dice game. It's a good spin on a strategy game. You have to be really thoughtful about what you're doing. Like I said, each and every turn, because you only have 3 hits. And some enemies have a strong attack that can take 2 out right in one. So I think my biggest issue is that sometimes it doesn't feel fluid enough where you're doing a lot of draws. Like a lot of turns, you're kind of going like, I'm not going to do much. I'm going to like do a light buff on myself for next turn. I'm not going to take any damage. The enemy, if you are not attacking them, they are taking the turn off also and buffing themselves for the same turn. Sometimes with the exact same ability that you're using. So you're basically just negating each other and then doing it again the next turn. And that's okay at the start when enemies are a little bit easier to beat. The deeper and deeper it gets, I find the longer the battles go, where you're just going, I just need to just get a little hit in. Like I need to scrabble away together to get a hit in. And sometimes it's very difficult and it takes too long. And it's not a common complaint of mine when a strategy, this type of strategy game is slow. Because it's slow. It's turn-based. Like, of course it's slow. But it feels weirdly slow to play to get through.
Let me put what you said a little bit differently. The thing I expect in games like this is as you play through it and as you become more skilled and as your character upgrades itself, you can expect to follow a certain strategy and crush most enemies. The thing here is, one, I don't think there's a lot of variety there's 4 characters in the game that you take on at different times in the story mode who actually don't have that much differentiation between, 1, their moveset, and 2, also their sort of passive abilities that they bring into the battle. You just can't crush enemies or follow a strategy that you set yourself to make the battles go faster. You're really at a lot of times at the behest of the draft. And there's nothing you can do about that.
Yes. I disagree that the characters aren't different. I think that they are actually very different within the very tight constraints of the game. But there isn't a lot of things that they can change. So everyone kind of uses the one stat, stamina, differently. Yep. Stamina is basically like bonus points that you can allocate to each stat, or they sometimes have other special bonuses. Like one character, if your stamina is above 5 at the end of your turn, the next turn you'll get some stamina dice, which are the wild gold dice.
Or one person heals automatically. If you have 2 stamina and you get damaged, it just spends it to heal. No, I think it's 5 stamina. It uses that stamina to heal you.
Or dodge. It does like an auto dodge. So they're actually pretty different. But that's the only way that they're different. Also, the thing is, there's no variety. There's a very little variety in the items and the equipment that you can find. And there's not a lot of progression. There are like different different classes of those items. Like there are like legendaries and rares and so on. But they kind of follow the same, like you said, it's not changing your strategy drastically, like with each character. Where I expected, having played a lot of these games, your Ring of Pain, your Monster Train, your Slay the Spire, you're smirking at Ring of Pain, I can see it.
I think I've heard of this game.
It's very good, actually.
Isn't there a weird looking creature on the front of it?
Yeah, it's a weird bird thing. It's great.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Those ones, yes, each time that you play the game, you end up kind of taking a slightly different path as far as your strategy. Whereas this game tries to accomplish that with 4 different characters, with 4 different movesets. And that's how it tries to give you variety in your runs. But that has a limited, that only does so much, right? Because if you're playing the same character, that same character is still the same. You're not getting the variety within the same character. Whereas I almost rather they just had 1 or 2 and upped the variety of things that can happen within the run. But then they're using their 4 characters from the fighting game. Like I get why they want to include them all. So it's a trickily developed game. Like it made me think so much about what I liked and what I disliked about it because I couldn't figure it out at first. I was just like, why is this not quite clicking perfectly, even though I really liked it?
I think for me, it's like the core gameplay having like this really solid hook to it, but you can just see the places where it could be better is part of it. But then the dungeon crawling, essentially you are going through a multi-level maze, usually underground, where you're like, I'm going to go to level 1, and within level 1, I'm going to move my character between different sections of this maze. And frankly, I didn't love that part of the game at all. That part of the game was boring to me. I'm like, I'm going to get through this boring part of dungeon crawling to find the enemies and fight them. To me, fighting was this game. Without fighting, there is no game.
Okay, well, I mean, agreed, obviously. Yes.
I mean, that's obvious. Anyone could say that, yeah.
But I did not dislike the dungeon crawling at all because I thought it was fine. Like, it's fast. It's not like it's painful to get through. It's not... it doesn't feel like an obstacle to me to get to the next fight where I'm like, just get through this. Like, it's very quick. You just click where you want to go and you get there. And then I like the chests that you pick up. Like, when you get to a room with a chest, with like a loot chest, it is basically the lock has a required number of each stat that you have to hit. So you get like so many dice rolls and then you got to slot them in, but then you have less dice. And it was like just like a little mini strategy game to get your loot. I liked it.
Yep.
It's very simple dungeon crawling. Like it's reminding me a lot of like Dicey Dungeons or a smaller, if anyone's played Backpack Hero, like a smaller version of that, but with less variety in the rooms. That's the thing. Again, with the variety, it's like if you had a couple more different rooms that did cool things that like had optional buffs and debuffs or something, then that would be more interesting too. The safe thing was cool.
Yeah, how are you talking? Essentially, you can send items to the bank at certain parts. Okay, you're talking safes.
Yeah, there's a safe where it's almost like a bank vault looking thing. Where it's
we're saying the same thing.
No, you have to clear 3 different rooms, and then those rooms have like little animals drawn into the sand, and then you're like, oh, that's the combination for the thing, and it's very simple and it's not hard. But it gave me something to do. Like, I don't know. The dungeon crawling was not the negative for me. It was the flaws in the combat that were the negative for me.
There also is sort of a town where you can visit a bank, an inn to recover your stamina. You can go to the bank to put items in it. There's a store where you can get items, and there's a blacksmith who can upgrade your attack and your accuracy and your speed. The thing that you collect throughout the caverns themselves is a purple crystal. I forget the name of the actual element itself. I will get that while we're talking, but that is the thing that you're chasing through the game, and using that you can upgrade Jules Vale, which is the town that you play in, so that you can get better items or hold more things in your bank vault. So that's not the curmudgeon. That's the widget that you're chasing throughout this entire game, which is fine. And the story, I don't know how you felt about it, but it didn't draw me in. It was totally window dressing that was fine.
I do not know what happens in the story of this game. I tracked it for like the first couple. Yeah, there's a story that goes to like a not a cartoon, but like kind of slideshow. They're talking. There's exposition being said, and after, I don't know, by the time I got to the third one, I was like, I don't care because there's nothing there. I don't know. Yeah. It was like you said, it was just to get you there, which you don't need in these kind of games usually, like that much. Like there was a lot. They tried to make me like care about the characters and what's happening and like the lore of like the place, and I'm like, I don't care.
Dicey Dungeon is like, game show, you're a dice now, go win.
Exactly. Slay the Spire, same. Get to the top of the tower. Ring of Pain, get to the end. Like there's an evil thing, you need to solve it. Like these games aren't usually based on story, and I think there's a reason, because it's difficult. Also, how did you feel about the campaign hopping from character to character?
Didn't like it.
Didn't like it. Me neither.
Didn't like it. Yeah, I really wish that Fleet is the main I don't want to say main character, but
it's the first character you play.
Normal and the first character.
Yeah, it's like the default character.
The default, and then you're given Hamir, Slade, and Artemis, which one of them has hammers, one of them has a sword, one of them has an axe, and one of them's a dragon, a shark, and a grass hedgehog. So you can kind of see what they're trying to do of like giving you variety, letting you play characters that look a little bit different. The designs are great, but I really wish I could have just taken Fleet through it and upgraded and changed Fleet's abilities, because I think there's some of that in the challenge mode, but in the main game, you actually can't go in and really change your character's movesets.
I don't think that you can. I did a bit of the dungeons, like you make a run with one character and try to get as far as you can. I didn't find much for customization. It's basically the same. That's another thing, is I would have liked, like, give me a thing where I can add modifiers to like make these runs different in some way, or give me a challenge that's not like these same 4-set challenges. Like a lot of these games have daily challenges where they'll have like unique spins on it. But I also don't think that that's this type of game for this developer where they're going to do that, because it's an offshoot from this other game, which is, and it's really cool. Like this is not, I feel like I don't want to detract from like what the game is, but yeah, that's just not what this is. If you want something crazy deep, where the replayability is just off the charts, this is not it.
No.
But I like it. For the amount, like my 8 hours spent, I really enjoyed myself. And I might dabble back some more. I might like sometimes run a dungeon with a character from time to time.
I think the thing that this game really shows me is that, or not that really shows me, but it makes me want a sequel really bad.
Yeah, actually,
because I can see the promise, and I can see what they were trying to do, or I see a version of this game that is 5 times more exciting. Like, this is a very solid like 8 to me, where this game is an 8. It is good value. The core is really good, but everything around the core, there's just, 1 or 2 missteps in design. I'm not a game designer, but there's stuff that I just look and I go, I wish I could just take one character through and, change their abilities. I wish this dungeon crawling was a little bit more compelling. I wish the story was streamlined, because I don't really, like, this world doesn't speak to me. But the dice part, it's like a drug, man.
But the
Give me them dice.
But the dice, though. Yeah, I love the dice. Yeah, it feels like this isn't what that studio is used to making. But like, they know these games. They clearly like these games. They wanted to make one of these games. But this isn't like their for some reason I was like, peanut butter and jam. That's not the saying. But it's not their peanut butter and jam. Like, it's just not. They're like, we're going to try this thing on the side, and like, we know how to do this. But
like, you're trying to say this isn't their core competency with food, right? Because there's an expression, but you don't know what that. This isn't their.
I think just their jam, or
their buttered bread. I don't know
how their something is made. I don't
how
know.
how the butter is made. Nope.
Why are we struggling with this?
I don't know.
It's not even
how
late at night. I don't know.
Toast is buttered. How their bread is buttered. Is that it?
Yeah, how their bread is buttered. We'll run with that.
Great.
Anyway. Okay, my other issue, because I had multiple. The bigger enemies, like your bosses, typically they have, as like a spin on them, they will have a unique spin with their stamina, just like your characters have a unique spin with their stamina.
Yep.
But so the bigger ones, typically your bigger bosses have an option where they can change their like stamina allocation mid-turn. Like, as you're deciding what you want to do, it will just adjust to what you're doing, which I think is just, it doesn't work for me. At all. Because, so I'm trying to, it forces this weird perfectionism that I dislike, where it's like, oh, well, I can add a couple points to my attack and then I'll be able to hit him. And then it'll just go like, doop, boop, and it'll just pop in 2 points into its defense. As you are, and then you're like, okay, that doesn't work. I have to change that. So never mind, I can't do attack. What if I do speed? And then it'll go pop up and it'll change. And then now it's hitting you, but you're not hitting it. Like, it's a very strange thing. I've never had, I don't think I can think of something else that I've played that's this type of game where it will change what it's doing based on what you did. Whereas typically they'll be like, no, this is what they're doing. They're either attacking, they're defending, they're buffing. It's pre-chosen, but it will change. And then also if you stop the enemy from getting a lot of not dexterity, we said it.
Stamina?
The
accuracy?
Accuracy. Then it'll change which attack it's doing. So then it'll change that mid-turn before you've made your final decision. So then you're stuck on this one turn for longer than you should be in a game that's already a little bit too slow. And now it's like, well, now I've fiddled about with this for like 2-3 minutes when I shouldn't be. It just slowed it down even further. So it was like a way to make those enemies more difficult, but it's not enjoyable. Like it doesn't make those enemies more enjoyable to fight against.
I disagree.
What?
I think I totally understand what you're saying of sometimes based on what you do, the enemy will change their attack. So let's say that you've set your attack up and you go for an attack. They will then either change to it because there's also the thing we haven't explained of the connect function where some characters essentially have to be attacked to attack. So an enemy will then have to, set up for an attack before you can attack them. If you are setting up your defense, they'll move from an attack to a buff just based on how you distribute your dice.
Yes.
And then sometimes if you attack, then they will then change their process or the thing that they were going to do. I think it usually followed a very set structure or a very set pattern where if you were setting yourself up to defend from an attack, they won't attack. They'll just guard. If you are setting yourself up for an attack and they can do something about it, then they will do that. It followed a very logical flow, so I don't maybe know.
I think my problem was more with them reallocating their stamina, which is just painful. Because then I'm adding my stamina, they're changing their stamina, and you're just like, it's this weird little chess game. It made it into a slow tactical chess game when I don't know that the game is deep enough for that. Where, like I said, at the end of it, you most of the time ended up kind of in a draw, which would be good if what your action had more of an impact on the next turn. But it's like, oh, you might get like 2 to your speed based on you're getting a bonus dice, but like it's not impactful enough to usually make that big of a difference unless you're getting your really, really big skills. Like something about the balance is just off from a point of like enjoyment, like where it just isn't, it becomes less fun the more I play it. Like I have diminishing
like you just want to spend
returns.
less time per battle.
Yes, basically, yes. And like, yeah, and then overall through the game, again, I enjoyed it for the amount of time that I played it, but the reason that I don't want to go back to it all the time is that I feel like diminishing returns. Whereas I could keep on playing like Slay the Spire, and I will be like, oh my God, that's a new build that I haven't seen in 500 hours. And that's not fair to compare this game to that game. But that's where the replayability falters, where it's like, you're just kind of running into the same wall over and over again. And the enemies are similar. I just, like you said, I do want a sequel. Like if they like split off a little bit and built up the team that's working on this and maybe brought like, I don't know, if they feel like they would need to bring in some other people to just up the team's like, abilities with this genre, or if they're like, no, we can build it ourselves. Either way, I think a sequel would be really, really interesting. Like I'd be so intrigued of what that would look like. Because it's there. It's right there.
I think it really harkens back to what I had said initially, that your skill doesn't really make you, as you get better, as your character gets items that are better, it doesn't really make a difference.
No.
And I think that's the thing that I really like to see in games, that as your skill ceiling goes up, the enemies around you should get better, but there should be this give and take of, there are times where I'm going to crush enemies, and there are times where things are going to be really challenging.
Yeah.
I felt that this game's challenge didn't really change. I crushed the final boss, so the challenge for me like never changed. I beat it on one shot. Didn't even have to think about it. I just knew exactly what I needed to do, because the final boss had different layers where you have to bring spoilers, I guess, for the end of this game, if you care. In 3, 2, 1. You will have to face a big bad who opens up a portal to another world, and you have to fight with each of your 4 fighters. And there's a cool mechanic in there where you have to feed the bad guy items so that you can then play your drafted dice. And each turn you swap between your 4 characters. So that was really cool, and that boss was pretty tough, but I beat it without even trying. So I guess I just wanted more challenge as I went through and to feel like I was getting better, which I didn't.
Yeah. No, I felt the same. Because, yeah, you're not gaining any skills, especially because it's based around a campaign. Mm-hmm. So you would think that as you're progressing through the campaign that there's going to be changes to the characters. But like I said, they kind of use that with the 4 different characters that you use instead of altering each, with progression. I thought a lot about this game. Like, I literally, I sat down and thought about it and was like, what is my issue? Because, like I said, it's very good. And I like the dice. I like the gems that you can plug into your weapon. And then those gems have abilities that you can use. Like, I wanted more abilities, I think. Because there's only, it did not feel like there was a lot of gems. There is the one that changes the top dice to an attack. There is the one that diminishes the opponent's gold dice, and I think there's one other one, and I'm like, I would have liked more options for gems because that would alter your playstyle a little bit. And it's not a lot. Like, I had 3 more gems, and
even the items, I there weren't many that I would go in and be like, ooh, this is an item I need. Like, the shuriken was very helpful because you could just throw a shuriken at one of their dice and it gets rid of the 1 dice. So if you throw that, you can totally destroy their strategy by just getting rid of 1 6 dice on defense and win. But there were very, those were hard to come by, and there are very few items in the game that I went, man, this item rules. There's food items and there's some variety in that, but basically they just give
all the food items are the same. Yeah.
They're the same. They're like, how many stamina are they going to give you? 1 or 6?
Yes.
3 or 4? Apple or fish?
Jeez,
I think all in all, like, you and I are at the point where we're like, there are other games in this genre that are better, but if you are a fan of the genre and you've played the 3 games that we've really went to bat for, the 4 games we've really went to bat for, and you're looking for more, I think this is a great package for, $14.99, gets you 5 to 8 hours of gameplay with a core that's really compelling.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like I said, I love that style of game, and I enjoyed my time. But yeah, it's just so flawed, and that it really bothers me. Because I want it to be better. I really wanted to dig into it and just keep on going back, and it's just not there.
78s are the hardest thing ever, right? Because they're good, but usually you can see a version of the game that's a 9, and I can see it with Dungeons of Aether, and that's what hurts me most.
Yeah, I would say it's a 7. That I could see how it could be an 8.5, but absolutely. I do want to point out
semantic me to death today.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to nitpick at everything. I like the animation of the characters and their attacks. That looks awesome,
and the music is dope.
Yes.
Yeah, it gave me very Genesis era sprite work, and reminded me a lot of, for some reason, Rocket Knight Adventure on the Genesis. The music did. Is very good. Almost one of the best parts of the game. Yeah, is the sprite work.
Yeah, the fluidity of their attacks. It's just pleasant to look at. I liked looking at it. I like looking at my little shark guy doing his little twisty thing and knifing the enemy. It looks good when you defeat the enemy and they fling out of the front of the cockpit of the metal thing that they're in. It just looks cool. I appreciate that.
And even the little flares of music when you beat an enemy, for example, just shows the level of care they put into the presentation of this game. If you ever see it at PAX, I've walked by it, I think at least 2 PAXs, and I just remember and I go, yeah, Dungeons of Aether, good looking game.
Yeah, it looks great. Did you have a favorite character?
No.
No. Wow.
No, I did not. Fleet, I guess, because Fleet is the analog for like every hero in every video game, but no, I did not. You?
I liked Slade, the shark guy.
Okay.
You know why? Because he could get attacks in really good, and it was a little bit faster that way. The armadillo, that's like kind of more blocker
Hamir?
heavy. Yes, Hamir. Was fun, but then was kind of slow by default because you gain stamina by blocking. And I'm like, so you're telling me to do more draw turns in order to do well at this character. But I liked playing him. He had the pivot attack where if you have gold dice in your attack and you're going first, you will attack, and then those gold dice will shift to your defense for the opponent's turn. Great attack. Made a lot of use of it. But like I said, I had needed to build up stamina by blocking. And I'm like, oh no, this is slower now. I don't know. I had mixed feelings. But yeah, no, Slade's my guy. And he's kind of cool looking. Yeah,
I definitely think about the way I always play dice. And a lot of the time, it would be attack first, then speed, then defense. Because a lot of the abilities that your characters have, at least for some of the characters, would raise defense. So you could do an attack and then either, like you said, if you're Hamir, swap your stamina dice into your defense, so it immediately you get the benefit of an attack and you get the benefit of the defense. Or, for example, you will raise your defense, or I think one of the characters, I forget who, after you attack, you can actually get rid of one of the opponent's dice and take a 1 stamina version of it for next turn. And there is some strategy in there, but I think for me, I want to choose what my characters look like. I don't want you to give me some prefab that I have to use for sections of the game.
What's your characters look like? Like, what do you mean?
No,
how they play
I want
like?
Prefab,
or just, okay.
Yeah, like they play. I want to pick, because they have passive abilities. I want to pick the passive.
I see.
I want to pick the attacks, and there is no flexibility in that. And I know this is a first version of the game. If there's a second, I want Fleet, and I want to be able to choose their passives, their attacks, so that I can play my way.
Yeah. That's so hard to do. That's the thing is, I keep on thinking about, like, game development wise, these games are hard to make. Like, they are so hard to balance.
Yep.
And then the more variables that you're throwing in, the harder it is to keep it balanced and to keep it from, like, breaking easily. Because if it's like you can break it every single time you play it and you're all powerful every time, then that's not going to work. So I appreciate how hard it is to keep these games to have that level of balance. But then there's something about things that don't connect together that it loses a smidge of the fun, where it's just not fun to like keep going all the time. But like figuring it out was a lot of fun. That's what I appreciate about this game was like, oh, I have a lot of different attacks. There are different characters with other attacks. I have to figure out the strategy. Like, I liked figuring the game out. But then once I had it figured out, I have nowhere else to go.
Yeah, and it's funny because Dicey Dungeon, this is the last thing I have to say, Dicey Dungeon is a game that gives you 6 characters, and your abilities are sort of prefab, but within that, you can go in and decide what attacks you have, upgrade those individual attacks, and there's a fun balance. It reminds me a lot of Backpack Hero, how you have to decide, because some attacks take up larger portions of your inventory, and some take up smaller, so there's that strategy to be able to, sure, the abilities are finite, but I can play my way and draw abilities and use them in my way, where this, like, you use prefab characters. And not to harp on it, because I do like this game. I just want more variety next time, if there is next time. I hope there's a next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any final thoughts about Dungeons of Aether?
I don't think so. I think we summed it up. Again, I enjoyed figuring it out, and I liked my time, and it's a good game. Like, it's not a bad game. It is a good game. I think the frustration was that, like, I could love this game, and I don't. I just really liked it for a set amount of time. And I love when these games keep drawing me back in. Like, I think I have like 5 different roguelikes, like, installed on my computer at all times. And I just pick 1 or 2 basically every night. And I will go back to a crop of them where they've really figured this out. And again, this is a offshoot of their other game, which seems to be their main focus. And like, it's hard. Game development is hard.
Yeah.
Strategy games are freaking hard.
Yeah.
And I don't think people appreciate how difficult it is to make these games.
So I guess with that, you go out and thank your friendly neighborhood game dev and say thank you for making video games, because indie games are great. We'll leave it there. That was Dungeons of Aether. That was our episode of Left Behind Game Club. As I said before, you can write us. You can rate us. You can write us on Twitter at Left Behind Club on Twitter. And you can also find us in the Left Behind Game Club Discord at leftbehindgame.club/Discord. Katie's in there. I'm in there. We're playing a lot of fun games in the Discord now. We've got a new Guess the Game. Let me see here. There's Guess the Game Daily, which someone actually wrote in and said, hey, you should check this game out. I tried it, and I'm like, that's actually kind of dope. So it's a game where you get a bunch of screenshots, and you have to pick what the game is by the screenshot. And then we also have been playing How Long to Beat Daily in the Discord, which is a new game from How Long to Beat, to say, like, how long is it to beat this game? How long is it to beat it with side missions? How long is the completionist run? What is the rating on a random game? So just to give you an example, today's was Final Fantasy Tactics: The War of the Lions on PSP, Sonic Colors, and Mortal Kombat 11.
Oh God, Final Fantasy Tactics. That's really long. Completionist?
Yep.
It's got to be like 90.
I think that the completionist run gets up there.
See, I should start playing these games. I haven't touched either of them, aside from when you posted the first one of the screenshot game, and I opened it up. I saw it very clearly Return to Monkey Island. It was like, boom, Return to Monkey Island, and I left, and then I never touched them again. But I really need to open those up and play around with them. But
it's almost like your New York Times daily challenges, but for video games.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Discord.
You can find all that, like I said, on the Discord, leftbehindgame.club/Discord. Katie, thanks for jumping on. We did this episode a little impromptu. It was a lot of fun. Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
I am on the Twitters, the tweets. I don't know. I'm there.
It's x.com now, according to someone.
No! I refuse. Yes, I'm there. I am Lesperak, Lesperak. I talk about random things, video games, sports, puppies, cats, mostly cats.
Cats are good.
Cats, I love cats.
You can find me on the internet at Jacob McCord on all things. And hey, if you live in the Detroit area, you live in the Detroit, Windsor, Ontario area, they're letting you host video game trivia in a bar, in an actual bar. And so if you want to come out to that, that's going to be the third Wednesday of every month. So come find me in real life, but be nice because, you know, I'm delicate.
I'll be there. I'll fend them off if anyone's mean. Don't you worry. I'm small, but I'm feisty.
I know. I've seen it. That's our show for this week. So with that, I say, and that, my friends, is one less game left behind.
Do you feel like you're the only person in your circle who wants to go deep about video games regularly?
We were like that too. Until now.
Welcome to Crossplay Conversations, the brand new bi-weekly topical video game podcast from Luke Lewis,
Joseph Hooper,
and Jacob McCord.
With many years of breaking it down separately on shows like the Left Behind Game Club, Player Podcast, and Lukewarm Games, the gang is finally coming together to publish their gaming group chat in audio form every other week.
Expect roundtable reviews of the latest games, profiles of upcoming indies, and insightful conversations about essential topics in the video game industry. All with a mostly positive, insightful, and fun style.
Help us out by subscribing on your podcast platform of choice to get the first episodes delivered straight to your feed.
And follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos for updates about the show.
Cheers and happy gaming.